Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Culture Cast. I'm Chris Dashew, and I am joined by Cotter himself, Mr. Mike Wallace. This has nothing to do with that. Why would you call me Cotter? Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, dude.
And on this episode of the Culture Cast, we are talking about Blowout, the next film in our Brian De Palma month. The film is directed by Brian De Palma and stars John Travolta, of all people, Nancy Allen, Mr. De Palma's wife at the time,
At the time.
Yeah. John Lithgow, looking very young, and Dennis Franz, who apparently is in like every De Palma movie he ever made, along with Nancy Allen. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, it's crazy when you go back and look and see how many movies Dennis Franz is in.
Yeah. So when I put this list together at the end of last month with you and Mike White from the projection booth, this is the movie that you guys kept talking about over and over again. I'd never seen it before, obviously.
It's weird. It's like every time I'm watching it, and I watch this movie at least once a year, I swear to God. I kind of go into debate in my head, like, is this his best movie? Like, look, okay, let's just say Phantom of the Paradise is his best movie. We know that.
Phantom of the Paradise is, without a doubt, Brian De Palma's best. And I would also give it credit for starting our friendship, so it's doubly his best film.
Totally. No question about it. Now, if we put that on a shelf for a minute and look at the rest of his career, like, okay, let me put it this way. If we're discussing Brian De Palma's thrillers, which there are legion.
Well, most of his films.
Yeah, like, I kind of go back and forth with this one and Body Double, like, as his best one. And I like Body Double a lot because of Melanie Griffith, who's great in it, and the sort of the milieu, you know, but, like, it's in Hollywood, and like, I like that period of American filmmaking, like, when they were showing sort of L.A. at the time. But this movie, to me, I think it might be his best as far as thrillers go. I will say, without a doubt, this is as brief as it is, this is my favorite credit sequence in any De Palma film. It's so quick, but it's so effective. I don't know. I'm sure you saw it. You know what I'm talking about, where it's just an audio needle sort of reacting to the sound effects on the screen, and as it wipes the screen, it's displaying the credits. I don't know. I could have watched an entire movie of that needle. I don't know why, but it's super effective in my mind.
This movie is probably the best thing I've ever seen John Travolta in. That's
it's right.
Sure.
It's definitely his best performance. Like, he's so effortlessly charming in this movie, and like really brings it. I've seen him be good. There's no question he was a good actor. This is his best role.
He was a good actor before he started jerking guys off in the shower and getting weird.
I think he was always jerking off guys in the shower.
Fair.
It was just a little less publicized.
Scientology kept that on the DL.
They did a really good job, clearly. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, you know, he kind of turned into a caricature of himself, like sort of post-Tarantino. Like, there were a couple of moments after Pulp Fiction where he was still doing good work, and then he just sort of like started doing a Travolta thing.
And there's been glimmers of Travolta being good. I mean, on The People vs. OJ, I know he gets a bad rap for that, but I didn't think he was that bad.
Oh, yeah, I'll go with you on that. I think he did a really good job, actually, in that. Like, I think he committed to that character and, like, really went for it. Yeah, no, that's true. I'm surprised I didn't thought of that.
But
yeah,
like,
I mean, he can be
like The Forger or some of the other like more recent kind of action-y films that he's done. It's like,
yeah, just what are you doing, man? I think here, like in particular, like I know he kind of blew up, obviously, and got away from the sort of Vinnie Barbarino character that everyone had expected him to just be that for his entire life. With that kind of 1-2 punch of Saturday Night Fever and then Grease.
A film that I absolutely hate.
Oh, you hate Grease?
Oh yeah,
really?
It's a film that's hard to watch because and you know me, and you've known me for like 9 months now, but we've had plenty of private conversations, so I feel like you know me pretty well. I am not a social justice warrior by any means. I find some of that shit to be a little overbearing.
I would never accuse you of that.
Right, but Grease is one of those films that makes me uncomfortable to watch because I feel like people always gloss over how big of a misogynistic dickhead John Travolta's character is in the film. And it's portraying that, like, this is the way guys are. They're not supposed to be emotional. The girl has to change for you. And the whole plot of the film is centered around Olivia Newton-John's character changing for John Travolta's character. And it's a little bad. And by a little bad, I mean a lot bad, because it's the whole film.
Okay, but don't you think he puts in the effort there?
I mean, he puts in the effort, yeah, but I still don't like the movie. I mean, it's not it's not because of him. And
right. I think that's a little more balanced than what you were saying, though. Like, they both kind of change for each other.
Yeah, he's still kind of an asshole at the end of the movie. Let's be honest.
He kind of is.
Jeff Conway is the best part of that movie. So.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah, Kinnicky's fantastic. Well, you know, and actually, the best part of the movie is Rizzo, Stockard Channing. That's, to me, she's the best thing in the film.
The whole thing I walk away from Grease is it doesn't help that I don't like the music either.
Oh, well, okay, then there's no. And look, I'm not going to fault you. If you don't like the music, then you don't like that musical,
like,
you know? Like,
yeah, and there's like some songs in it that aren't bad, but a lot of them are, I don't know, here's my thing, right? So, and this is a complete sidebar here. We haven't even fucking talked about Blowout.
We're not talking about Blowout.
Yeah, blow out this shit. No, because Blowout's an awesome film, but let's talk about something here. Speaking of Phantom of the Paradise, speaking of Grease, what bums me out the most about Grease, and we did a podcast over Grease. I talked to Barry Pearl, if I'm fucking Grease, on the podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, so, you know, go check that out if you want to hear my thoughts on Grease 2 years ago. But my problem with Grease is it's one of those films that sits in this spot where it's shown at the Alamo Drafthouse in a sing-along. And it's,
that's a problem. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this movie's not that good. The music isn't that great. The music all is kind of one-dimensional for the most part. It's like pretty one-note, aside from Grease by Frankie Valli. But Frankie Valli's a fantastic singer to begin with. I'd listen to Frankie Valli sing. I saw Frankie Valli last year live. Fucking dude's 84, was out there for 3 hours. He may have been lip-syncing, I'm not sure. My problem with it is there are much better musicals out there with better music, more creative music, that didn't gain any traction.
Yeah.
Outside of Winnipeg, Canada.
There you go. No, and you know what? I find more often than not, like, I tend to react to a reaction as opposed to the movie itself sometimes. I think when people go bananas over a certain thing and tell me how revered and adored it should be, like, I tend to run in the other direction.
Agreed.
And I think so. I can see Grease occupying that spot for you. Look, man, I was like 6 when that movie came out, and so I literally grew up with it. So for me, it does have a bit of that sort of revered place in my heart. But, you know, look, it's, you know, there are people who tell me that they love a particular musical, and I'm just like, yeah, no.
What's your favorite musical other than Phantom of the Paradise? Maybe that's not even your favorite musical. Movie musical.
Yeah, and that's sort of an odd mix there in that it's characters performing the songs as opposed to characters suddenly spontaneously breaking out into song.
Yeah, because I don't know if Phantom is really a musical.
It is and isn't. It's a weird hybrid, and that's kind of what makes it even more unique.
Because of course it is Brian De Palma. Of course it is.
Right, and I don't think he was going to give himself over to the total artifice of people just suddenly singing their emotions.
Right.
I got a real soft spot in my heart for Little Shop of Horrors because I think Howard Ashman might have been a true genius when it comes to lyrics. There are so many like twists and turns in his lyrical style that are really great. Oh, you know what? I take it back. Little Shop of Horrors is fucking fantastic. Like, as far as a rock musical goes, like, that's probably my favorite. But ultimately, Stephen Sondheim's Sweeney Todd, putting aside the horrible Tim Burton film for a moment, that musical is, I can listen to it day and night. I just adore it. So there's my answer as far as what musicals I really enjoy. Obviously, they hew towards the sort of horror and sort of darker side of things. Like, I can get behind, I don't know, like Seven Brides for Seven Brothers or something. Like, I can enjoy them, but like not the way those movies, or rather those musicals, speak to me.
Well, we talked about how De Palma wouldn't give himself over to a traditional musical, but I would give myself over to Absolute Pleasure with my favorite musical. I mean, I saw it in college for the first time. Rocky Horror Picture Show, without a doubt, my favorite musical.
It's great, no question about it.
It personifies everything that is like the kind of person that I am and my friend group, and it's about a bunch of fucking weirdos. It's written by Richard O'Brien, who's kind of a weird guy.
A bona fide weirdo, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. but not like in a bad way. But he is a weirdo. And Rocky Horror Picture Show, everything about that movie is just, I don't know. You have to watch. It's one of those movies. Either you get it or you don't.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies that I over the years, because I too got heavy into it. Like it was in high school, I think, for me. And of course, like the experience of like being in the theater and the shadow cast and the sort of call and response with the audience, and like feeling like a tribe of weirdos, like that was that's a powerful thing. But I can also enjoy the movie just by itself,
right?
And I'm sure you feel the same way, because ultimately it's a great musical, and like I don't need any of the other stuff.
No, you don't. And that's the thing. I would suggest anyone who watches it, watch it the first time in the comfort of your own home. Because the whole shadow cast and the call-outs, those can be overwhelming if you've never seen the film before.
You can, and when I first started watching it, it had only been around for about 10 or 12 years by then, and so like the amount of sort of call and response was kind of limited. It was basically just like the audience participation album. Like no matter what state I would go to, it was basically kind of the same thing. If you go now, it is a barrage, man. If that's your first experience of Rocky Horror, like I don't know that you can enjoy the movie at all. Like it's just something playing on the screen while an audience and whatever like shadow cast has decided that they're the best thing, and you know what I mean. It's just like I don't know, it can be a bit overbearing. I highly recommend anybody watch it just on its own, because it's a really great movie.
And I also have a soft spot for Repo the Genetic Opera.
Now that's where we're gonna part ways.
Oh lordy lord, not a fan of Paul Sorvino doing opera, huh? Not a fan.
I'm a fan of Paul Sorvino, and I'm a fan of his singing voice, but that operetta, I don't know, painful.
And see, that's the thing. Like, the Repo the Genetic Opera is very polarizing, so you're not the only one.
And let me say this, maybe, like, speaking of what we were just talking about as far as, like, somebody telling you how great something is, and that they, like, when I was, Jess and I were in Los Angeles going to a midnight screening of Poltergeist, right? And we were in one line, the Poltergeist fans, and the other line was a cadre of like steampunky looking weirdos, and we didn't know what they were online for. And someone in our group asked them, "What are you guys going to see?" And they said, "Oh, we're going to see Repo the Genetic Opera." And he said, "Is it like Rocky Horror?" And they like almost in unison yelled back, "It's better than Rocky Horror." And I was like, "Oh,
I don't know about that."
Is it? And then when I finally watched it, I was like, "Yeah, those people are idiots."
Would you have felt that way about it if someone hadn't said it's better than Rocky Horror?
Yeah, I would have, because I don't like the music at all.
Yeah, I can honestly sympathize with that. There are only a couple songs from that movie that like I like. As opposed to Rocky Horror, which I think there's like one song from Rocky Horror I'm not a huge fan of. So,
what song is that?
I Can Make You a Man. It's just
really, it's
just one of those songs that just like it never like it's just okay. I don't.
Wow.
It's kind of like it's a little slower than the other ones. So,
I love that song.
See, I really like Hot Patootie. That's a good one.
That's a great one.
That's a good one. Rose Tint My World is another good one.
That's a great one too. Oh, well, they're all good. I mean, we're not going to find a bad one, really.
But what about Superheroes and Sword of Damocles? There's the deep cuts right there.
No, I love both of those.
Yeah. Superheroes is great.
Sword of Damocles was never on the soundtrack album, and it always pissed me off. Yeah.
Well, and Superheroes adds a weird angle to the end of that movie that I think a lot of people don't really like.
What's funny is when I first started going, that version, the American version, did not have that scene, so it all seemed semi-triumphant at the end. And then like when I grew up in Boston, we had actually competing shadow cast of Rocky Horror, and the new sort of upstart group got their hands on a European print, so like everyone flocked there to see it. And the people were crying in the theater watching it for the first time. Yeah,
because the ending of that movie with the UK version is a downer.
Oh boy, is it ever dour!
It's such a downer and a dour ending that it almost makes you want to forget that shock treatment exists.
Ooh,
You're a
I
fan
love
of shock.
shock.
You're a fan of shock treatment, aren't you? I fucking knew it.
I love shock treatment.
Oh, it's one of those movies I have to go back and watch again. Like, I keep telling myself I know I'll like it if I watch it again. But man, it's a fucking rough movie to watch the first time. Like, it's gonna be.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know what? That's the thing. If you're coming from the Rocky Horror thing and like, this is a sequel to Rocky Horror, more of the same. It's like, yeah, no, they went in a whole different direction.
Yeah, no, it's nothing the same. But it's got Jessica Harper in it, which is cool.
Yeah, who's fucking phenomenal in it. And I mean, look, ultimately, you don't have Tim Curry, and it's the weight of his absence is really heavy.
And let's not forget, obviously, Tim Curry was the one who was cast as Frankenfurter in the original Rocky Horror Picture Show on stage.
Yeah, of course, the Rocky Horror Show.
Yeah, so, the movie, I don't think the Rocky Horror Picture Show would have been as good without Tim Curry to begin with.
Oh, no, it would be a massive failure without him.
So the next movie is just, it's like, there's a it's a glaring hole.
Right. And, it suffers from the sort of, we're talking about like a musical that he had written and they had performed like off Broadway, and like they had done it 100,000 times and like honed it and like, polished it and then got it into a film, and then like, okay, do it again. And you just like write a script and fucking write some songs and put the movie together. Like, yeah, I'm sure it'll be as good.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
Hey, blowout.
So, anyways, our kind of tangent aside, talking about John Travolta. Blowout's great.
Right?
It's weird, though, because like I was saying, and like we've been talking about, and our tangent, I would not consider John Travolta to be a fantastic actor.
I don't know. I think he's had moments. But definitely
moments
think
don't make a career.
Right.
I mean, they do clearly for John Travolta.
Right. I think I saw this movie sort of young enough that I always considered him a really great actor, because I do think this performance is like superlative. I think it's wildly the film itself is wildly underrated. His performance is wildly underrated. I said sort of at the top, like sort of, like, you get how effortlessly charming the guy was in moments in this movie, just in simple conversation type stuff. But I think, I don't know, man, he brings it so hard, like in every emotion. And his best performance, bar none, this movie.
And let's not forget, this movie is sandwiched between Urban Cowboy and Staying Alive, one of his better regarded films and one of the worst films that he was in. And this movie is only 8 years removed from Look Who's Talking.
Yeah. I mean, like, was this it? I mean, what did you say come after this? Urban Cowboy came after this movie?
Urban Cowboy came out 1 year before this film.
Before it.
1 year, or 2 years after this, Staying Alive came out.
Yeah, not great.
Written and produced by and directed by Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, not a good follow up. Although, I go back and I watch Saturday Night Fever, and like I like appreciate it for the sort of the time capsule quality of the film, but like I don't know how great it is. If I want to watch a John Travolta performance, this is the movie I'm going to put on.
With Face Off being a close second?
No, not really. I can't.
Face Off's okay.
It is what it is. I mean, it is like sort of, people say like, it's a comic book kind of thing. Like to me, like that is what like a comic book movie like used to be, or like was expected to be, with the kind of like way over the top performances all around.
Well, yeah, because Travolta and Cage are hamming it up.
Yeah, man, it's a John Woo film. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad to it, and I can dig it on that level. For me, if you're going to say John Travolta movie, I'd say this one. His performance in Pulp Fiction is pretty friggin' solid. And, I don't know. I mean, he's pretty good and perfect. Oh, The Punisher. Oh, no, he's real bad in that.
He's great in that Punisher movie. Come on now.
No, he's not.
I like that Punisher movie a lot.
You know what? I enjoyed the Russian scene, the fight between him and the big Russian.
Between him and Kevin Nash.
Yeah, like that's a great scene.
Yeah, no, it is.
And Will Patton's performance is really good in that too. He came out of he's in from another movie. You know what I mean? Like,
no, he totally is.
But a welcome addition to that film. Like, I think that movie would be lesser without him. But
I don't know.
yeah, no.
Tom Jane will always be my Punisher. I don't. The popular opinion is that movie is garbage.
Right.
So,
Well, it's better than the Lundgren movie. Leaps and
not
bounds.
saying much.
Yeah, I know. It's a cold comfort there.
But I mean, Travolta recently is not known for making quality films.
No. But was he ever? He kind of occasionally falls into one that's really good. And, all I got to say is thank God he had been cast as one of the villains in Carrie so that De Palma cast him in this one. Because from what I understand, his initial casting idea was to have Al Pacino play this role. And I've got to say, I would not like this movie at all if Al Pacino had played this part.
I want to talk about another actor who's kind of fallen a little bit.
Yeah, not just fallen, but as far as we were saying about Travolta, where he just sort of became this character or caricature of himself. At a certain point, just was like, I've got these 17 moves, and you will see these 17 moves forever now.
What are you talking about? He was in Jack and Jill.
Yeah, wasn't he?
Dunkachino, dude.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen that movie. I swear to God, have you seen that movie?
I somehow missed it.
Darn. Man, I had someone try to tell me the other day that movie's actually funny, to which I said, yeah? You're a liar. You are lying. These are lies. Ugh. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's a caricature. He's just playing himself.
Right. But, I don't know. Blowout Man, it's, I love I watched it again last night, just preparation, even though I needed to do zero prep work on this because I've seen it so often. But a perfect sort of De Palma film in that he's really drawing on all of his obsessions. And most of his movies are about obsession, so it's kind of appropriate. But clearly he's a conspiracy nut. The movie kind of weaves in with Chappaquiddick and the whole sort of Teddy Kennedy thing and the Kennedy assassination, sort of making them one thing, which I love. I love the sort of it's kind of a riff on Blow Up, the Antonioni film, where he captures a murder potentially with his camera, and in this case, making it a sound guy, which is something you never see in a movie, and kind of shining a light on that aspect of filmmaking. There's so much packed into this movie. And quite often when a filmmaker does that, they're just kind of throwing everything at the wall and hoping anything sticks. And 9 times out of 10, only half of it does. But in this case, it all came to it gelled together really, really well.
There's only one other movie about a sound engineer I can think about, and that's Berberian Sound Studio. Which I
have not seen this movie.
No, I have not. It's imagine if John Travolta's character in this movie were a bad guy who was torturing people to get the sounds he wanted.
Oh, well,
and
that's interesting.
It's Toby Jones instead of John Travolta.
Oh, I'm definitely going to have to watch that then. I like that guy.
Yeah. So,
well, I mean, there's one other movie pretty close to this one, although the tone is wildly different. And that was, of course, Coppola's The Conversation, about a security expert who inadvertently records, I don't want to give the movie away, I guess. If you haven't seen it, go see that movie. The Conversation. It's spectacular. But that's sort of, it's, like I said, a whole different animal than this one. And, let me, I know I'm just keeping praise on this movie, but I'm going to do some more. Because, at the time that the movie came out, and so over the past 20 or 30 years, watching the process that Travolta goes through, just sort of recording the sounds and re-recording or going out and recording them, and you host a radio show, man, it's very rarely sort of photographed and analyzed. And at the time it was fascinating because nobody had seen that. And now to me it's even more fascinating because all of it has gone away. Scrubbing audio tape to get to that one moment and then dubbing that one little bit and making that a piece and then labeling it and hanging it on the wall. It's it was fascinating then. It's even more fascinating now to watch what was and what is no longer.
Well, and that's one of the things that I walked away from this film really appreciating was you really get to see what it, like you said, what it used to be, and how things used to be done. And Travolta's character walking around in Central Park with just his microphone.
Yeah, with that what an amazing scene where he does it twice because we get the initial scene, we've got the sort of shotgun mic, and we're hearing the sound, and we're watching him, and we're watching the sort of motions that he's making, and then the camera sort of, micros into a macro to finally hear that odd thing you've been hearing the entire time come into focus in the foreground. It's so subtle and wonderful. You know, can we talk just a sec, because I haven't spoken to you guys or you about any of the sort of De Palma films, but you know, he's got this this reputation that dogs him as just a Hitchcock imitator, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Everything that I had ever read about him, because I'm going to be perfectly honest, outside of Phantom of the Paradise and having seen Mission to Mars in theaters, I was not very well versed in his filmography. So everything I'd ever read was like, he's just an imitator of Hitchcock. You shouldn't watch his movies. Just watch Hitchcock. Hitchcock's better anyways.
Yeah, and I kind of, like, obviously he is a student of Hitchcock because he makes thrillers, and who better than Hitchcock was there for the previous 60 years of cinema?
Yeah, who else why would you copy an inferior product?
Right. Yeah, I mean, and you know what? Even if he had never seen a Hitchcock movie, even if he came to it like sort of fresh to the game, like whatever he's going to do subject-wise is going to get compared to Hitchcock anyway. And the fact that he is, I think De Palma is, God help me for saying this, but I think he might actually be the sort of best technician of the sort of movie brat generation. Like, you know, I know all of those guys were super skilled, but there's something sort of precise and not unusual, but like it's hard to describe, because Scorsese, you know, he uses cinema in such a like a florid and like visceral way, but De Palma comes at it from this weird, like I said, like a technician sort of point of view, but like the shots and stuff are no less measured or thoughtful. It's kind of like when people talk about like Kubrick or the Coen brothers, where they say like, you know, they're kind of detached, and it's like, yeah, but that's fine because that's a point of view as well, and like De Palma kind of falls into that category.
No, you're completely right. I mean, that's kind of the feeling I've had going through the last 3 films that I've watched.
Yeah, and so like
there's like an underlying feeling in these films of kind of constant, infinite unease that De Palma has a really like a stranglehold on how to do that. And it's like, I would almost assume it's unintentional with his thrillers. Like he just, at this point, he knows what he's doing so well that it doesn't even really faze him to do it. He's just doing it, and he's not even going out of his way to do it. If that makes sense.
But yeah, totally. And at the same time, like the way he constructs shots, like the composition, it seems so effortless, but like if you watch them a bunch of times, you start to realize, like, I mean, he's using sort of the split diopter a lot in this movie, where which you can do now just with a fucking digital whatever, and there's nothing to it. But when you think about like how many shots there are in this movie where there's a character in total close up in the foreground and the background action is also in close up or you know, in focus, and that they had to actually like film the one thing and then crank the film back and film it again with one side blurred out and the other in frame to get that shot. Like, it must have taken so long and it's clearly like he wants to do it because he's got this love of that particular kind of frame, and like people just wrote him off as this fucking Hitchcock imitator when I feel like he was more innovative than Hitchcock in a lot of ways. You know, I mean, Hitchcock was as innovative as he could have been with the equipment, but I don't think he was ever pushing harder than like De Palma was. Like, you could tell De Palma was like hungry for all of the new technology and like, you know, pushing whatever boundary of cinema like he could get his hands on, and like, you know, impressing, probably because of the group of filmmakers he was sort of friends with, where they were all trying to one up each other, but like also pushing himself like with every single film. And as I said, like there's so much of it in each of the frames of the movie, and it seems to go by and you don't even really notice it, that it in some ways, like, it's a superior in, like, you know, like you can look at the fucking shot in Goodfellas where, you know, like it's the Steadicam track through the restaurant and everything. Like, while you're watching it, you're going, wow, this is a cool shot, right? But should you be thinking that while you're watching it, or should it just seem effortless? It's like, you know, when people talk about good editing, they said if it's really good editing, then you shouldn't notice it at all. And I feel like that's where De Palma like rises above most, in that you don't notice like how much work went into that shot until you watch it a second and third time, and you're like, Jesus Christ, this must have taken 3 days to get this one little fucking image, and it's masterful. Like I obviously I put him in like the top tier of filmmakers. Like I cannot imagine people sort of just dismissing him as one thing or another. Based on little things like, everyone wants to sort of point a finger and say, like, it's not this or it's too much of that. But I don't know, man.
Well, here's the thing about the film is that having only seen it once, it being the first time I watched it, it's a film that's rather hard to unpack the first time you watch it because it's a dense film, and De Palma's films are dense because, like you've said, he is a very technically skilled director.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, you look at a director like, and you know what, I'm going to say it and I don't care, and that's fine. I don't think Quentin Tarantino is a technically skilled director.
I agree with that.
I think Tarantino has good stories. I think Tarantino is a gifted writer who likes to rip off other people's ideas and turn them into something that's more palatable for people now. Yeah, I said it. Come at me. I don't care.
Yeah. We're of a mind with that.
Right, yeah. Brian De Palma, on the other hand, he's like a technician with the camera. He knows what he's doing, and, I mean, he's the king of the tracking shot. Snake Eyes opens up with a 13-minute tracking shot. And for those of you who don't know what a tracking shot is an uninterrupted shot, which means the first 13 minutes of Snake Eyes is done in one take. How many takes it took them to get that is a different story, but it was done in one take.
And it's not just like the opening shot of Apocalypse Now, which is just a static camera, like watching action unfold. This is an active camera where we're introduced to many different characters in many different situations, in many different locations, where the camera is constantly in motion, and he thinks all of that out and plans it to the letter. It's masterful. Like, and, remember, at the time, this was film, so you only had so much of it. Like, a shot could last 13 minutes because that's when the magazine ran out. Like now with digital, you can do it all day long, and you can join the themes and whatever. So you can say like the movie, like what was it, Birdman, the Michael Keaton movie, where it's like, well, it's all one uninterrupted take, and it's like, no, it's not, and that's kind of meaningless.
Hey, don't say that now. That movie was Oscar nominated.
Okay, well, let me take it back.
Well,
I take it back.
Whoa, now. Yeah, that whole thing with Birdman bothers me when they say it's not. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. If there's a join, then it's not. Like in De Palma. Like, he sometimes would do a sort of fakey thing like that where, the camera pans quickly to the left and there's a cut in there somewhere, even if you can't spot it. But, like, if he could do the shot, he would. And that's kind of a lost art. Nobody better than him at that. Like, there are certain filmmakers that there's nobody better. Like, I always say this about, like, Robert Zemeckis. Robert Zemeckis has a thing he does in all of his movies where he can pan a room and tell you everything you need to know about the character just based on sort of set decoration. I don't think anybody does it better than him. And as far as like a tracking shot, like Jesus Christ, Brian De Palma is the king.
And that's a lost art. I mean, people aren't going out of their way to do tracking shots anymore. And single takes. I mean, people aren't going out of their way to doing that. So
right, and he did it like with every film. Like you could tell he was like, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fucking figure out this complicated fucking thing. Like even in the worst of his movies, like he always sort of brought this like level of like cinematic brilliance that like some of those scripts didn't deserve. But in this case, this particular movie, there's so, like you said, there's a lot to unpack. But I don't know, it hits on every level for me. Nancy Allen's character is maybe not the strongest character in this movie. But,
I don't know how I feel about Nancy Allen as an actress.
I like Nancy Allen quite a bit.
She's okay, but let me put it this way. When you're married to the director...
Yeah, you're going to get the role.
Yeah. She's okay. Well, I mean, I love her. I love her in RoboCop.
Yeah, she's great in that. And she's great in fucking Carrie.
I just can't see her as anything other than the cop from RoboCop.
Right. Well,
that was the first thing I saw her.
I was about to say, then clearly that's your first experience with Nancy Allen. Honestly, if they could have taken her character from Dress to Kill and put it in this movie, it would be a perfect movie that I would fight people over.
That's right, because she was in Dress to Kill as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think the character that she's playing here is kind of a direct reaction to how strong that character was. And here, because this one is a bit more more kind of in the noir genre. Like, I think he was kind of playing with the sort of old, like, dame kind of character. And, and I imagine Nancy Allen was, like, eager to, like, play a different kind of character. So, but having said that, here I go heaping more praise on the film. There are times when you're watching a movie and, like, they've thrown two characters together sort of romantically, and they've done it because that's what needs to happen. Or they've been through a situation together, and so clearly those characters would sort of be attracted to each other. The chemistry between John Travolta and Nancy Allen in this movie is sparkling, man. It's just like it seems so true and real. Like, I can't think that these characters wouldn't be interested in one another. Even with whatever motives that they might have initially, like, obviously John Travolta is, like, trying to use her to, like, clear his name or, like, unravel this mystery, but, like, they do seem to, like, genuinely really like each other, and that's kind of rare sometimes. And I don't know, another mark on the scoreboard for this particular movie for me.
Well, and let's not forget how fantastic John Lithgow is, with not being given a whole lot to do. I mean,
no.
He's in the film not enough.
Right. Or maybe the perfect amount. I don't know.
Right. I'm a huge John Lithgow fan. So,
as am I.
Yeah. From his days on season 4 of Dexter, this was very much shades of that.
Yeah, it's funny to like to like watch him. Like, I think for that role on Dexter, like, I think that was a surprise for a lot of people because they had only known him, like, from Harry and the Hendersons or Third Rock from the Sun, and it's like sweet, lovable John Lithgow, and like, oh no, here he is, this crazy killer, and it's like, yeah, no, he's always been that guy. Like, go back and watch this. In this particular, like, he's chilling in this movie, as far as I'm concerned. Like genuinely scary. And so people talk about, like, the sort of an iciness in certain characters or killers. Obviously, the Anton Chigurh character in No Country for Old Men, the Javier Bardem character, like, that's kind of in the same league with this guy who's constantly thinking. And, another thing I like in this movie is, like, he was hired by this group to, like, take this guy out of the election, but has decided, like, well, I'm just going to do it my way. And, like, they don't even want to deal with him anymore. He's like, well, I could just, like, get some photographs of this potential presidential candidate and, like, ruin his career, but I think we should kill him. And now that there are some loose ends, I will now kill a bunch of women and make it seem like there's a sexual predator loose in Philadelphia just so I can get to this girl. It's so twisted and weird, man. There's a lot to love it. It's
escalating in its kind of black humor, right?
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, do we ever really, the sort of true criminals, do they ever really, like, come to light in this movie? We get a couple of scenes of conversations with them and stuff, but we don't. And if the movie was made nowadays, people would be like, well, who are the villains? Why are they doing these things? Like, and this, it doesn't matter, and it never really bothers me that it doesn't. You know what I mean?
They get away.
They do get away with it. Like, all of his fears are sort of confirmed to John Travolta's character are confirmed. Like, they are going to get away with it. I mean, he gets to walk away with his life and go back to his, sort of previous career and everything. So he's not affected that badly, I suppose. But at the same time, like, yeah, I mean, what a lesson to learn in, like, the worst way possible.
Well, and that's the thing. The way that the movie ends for me, I think, is so masterfully done. Is that it ties back into this kind of, I would say it's like the C plot of the movie, where they're trying to find the perfect scream.
Yes.
And it turns out that probably not best to ruin it, the final twisted part of the film, which it's pretty twisted, but the final scream that they end up using it's a stroke of genius.
Right. It's like
total 100% stroke of genius.
Yeah, it's a nice little bow on what has been a fantastic present to begin with. Like, the present itself is glorious, and then when you look at the wrapping it came in, it's like, that's just as good.
Yeah. And it's twisted. The ending of this movie is pretty twisted.
Yeah. And, that's one of those things where, like, I'm sure studio people were like, no one's going to see this movie if you end the movie this way. And he was just like, well, that's the way the movie ends.
No one's going to see it. Fuck them. And no one saw this movie. That's the
Nobody
sad part.
saw this movie. Yeah, it's insane to me that this isn't in people's top 10 of, thrillers sort of in general. Crazy. I mean, but you can say that. I mean, people, I think, know Dress to Kill more than they know either this or Body Double. But I love Dress to Kill. There's so much in it that's really good. Keith Gordon is fantastic in that movie. Nancy Allen's fantastic in it. That's a really good movie. No question about it. This movie is head and shoulders above that.
Yeah, Michael Caine is not great in Dress to Kill.
No, he's okay. He's okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. The star actor in this movie is so much better than the quote-unquote star actor in Dress to Kill that I'd rather watch this over Dress to Kill.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Me too.
the twist in Dress to Kill is pretty dumb.
Mm-hmm. And it's
like,
a bit,
so it's just like Ace Ventura.
Yeah, and it's a bit sketchy and at the time it was probably a little odd.
But it's also mildly offensive, right?
That's what I'm kind of getting at.
Again, not an SJW here, but it's kind of offensive.
It is kind of offensive. Okay, because
he's a tranny, get it?
Yeah, because he's a transsexual, he has to act out and be murderous, and it's really? That's where you're going? Oh. But this movie avoids all of that. Yeah. Sleepaway Camp is a fantastic film. Yes, Felissa Rose.
But Sleepaway Camp, Dress to Kill, Ace Ventura, not giving the transsexual community, not doing them any favors.
No, man, they're not. There's no favors being done by those particular films. This movie avoids all of that mercifully, and I don't know, man. I can watch it again right now. It's so good.
So what would you give the film out of 5?
Oh, I'm going to give it a 5. How about that? I know I said earlier,
you may have given every film you've been on this podcast for a 5.
Yeah, have I? No, that's not true, because we also did The Truth About Cats and Dogs. I think I gave that a 2, maybe a 2.5.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, but that movie deserved a 5 because it's amazing.
Okay. Well, anyway.
You're right.
But here's the thing, right. Chris, you keep having me on to talk about movies that I love, so of course I'm going to give it a 5.
Go for it. No, yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. That's the thing. People need to talk more about the movies they don't like than the ones that they like, because everybody knows the movies they like always get good scores.
People do the opposite, man. Every podcast these days is about how horrible a movie is and cutting it to shreds. Yeah. In this case, this is a great movie and not enough people see it.
How is anyone supposed to find a movie to watch that's good?
Yeah, when everyone is no matter how good or bad a movie is, they're just shredding it. Give me a break.
Let's just riff on how bad this movie is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jump in line with every other movie podcast.
But Blowout 5, easy for me.
Yeah, I'd give it a 4. It's pretty good.
Oh, is it pretty good? Or is it? Or are you lying to yourself right now? Because
God, he's trying to sway the vote. He's trying to sway it.
This movie actually blew your mind, and you still are grappling with that.
I have to. Like I said, I really probably need to watch it again. Realistically,
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I'm saying I have watched this movie at least once a year my entire life, since I saw it initially, and there's always something interesting in it to me. People say this about I never noticed this or that in a movie before. I'm yeah, but those are really obvious things. Why didn't you see them? But this is one of those movies where I literally do find something interesting every single time I watch it. And again, not the least of which is sort of the C plot of the movie is the fact that he's a sound guy for low budget horror movies. And even that to me is so watchable. I don't know, man. I just love this movie.
Here, I'll give it a 4.5 with that half a point because of how the movie wraps up.
Okay,
the ending of the movie is really fucked in the best way.
Yeah.
The end of the movie is totally fucked.
It is, and it does, and it feels. Yeah, I heard David Fincher say something about movies lately where he says he himself has never really achieved this, but the greatest of movies is where the ending feels completely inevitable. Of course it ended that way. And right. This movie is definitely that.
And it has to earn it. It earns it.
Right. Yeah, it's one thing to just throw in a weird little twist and a downer ending just because you want to defy expectations. This movie was going there from the first frame, and not only does it get there, but it pays off to the initial scene in such a fucking gorgeous way. And oh my God, yeah. Again, if you haven't seen the movie, I'm not ruining it. Go see this movie because I don't know.
Do you think 7 earns its ending?
No.
Yeah, me either. I feel like speaking of Fincher critiquing someone else's film.
Yeah.
I don't think 7 really.
I definitely don't agree that it earned 7, that ending.
I think 7 is so overrated.
Me too.
Yeah. And that's just us being contrarian movie critics, Mike. That's us being contrarian.
I know, I guess so. 7 was I think it was a pretty good movie. I don't think it earned that ending at all. In fact, I remember sitting in the theater watching it for the first time, and Gwyneth Paltrow's character walking on screen and going, "Oh, so she'll be dead in the last frame." Like, it was just so obvious. And for no other reason than we want to do that.
I walk away from David Fincher thinking Zodiac is still my favorite movie that he's done. And it came 10 years too early.
I totally agree with you. I really like him. Like, he's never not interesting. But Zodiac is one of those movies that I'll throw on every once in a while just because it's so, I talk about dense and sort of packed but never uninteresting, and performance-wise. And, you know, if there's sort of an air to sort of De Palma's, like, the sort of technician quality or technical quality, like, I think Fincher inherited that, where he is doing beautiful shots, and sometimes you don't even realize that it's happening until the shot is like past, and you're like, wait, what the hell just happened? Never uninteresting.
I would agree 100%. And Fincher, for me, like you said, there's a technical quality to him that just a lot of directors don't have.
Yeah,
and that's not a bad thing.
No, I mean, look, man, everyone talks about like their love of movies. Everyone loves movies. Of course we love movies. It's like the fabric of our lives, you know. But like, you know, there's a difference between, I'm stating the obvious here, but like someone like David Fincher and like Zack Snyder, like they both know their shit, but like one of them actually gives a shit at the end of the day, and one of them is just kind of jerking themselves off. Like, isn't this cool? Let's do this other cool thing. What other cool thing can I do? And David Fincher's like, how can I best tell this story in the most interesting way possible?
Yeah, ultimately it doesn't always have to be about showing something cool.
Right. Sometimes, you know, just back off and like let one scene like take its course, and then we'll get to the cool thing later. Like, you know, restraint, I guess, you know?
Yeah. Well, restraint is not something that's done anymore in Hollywood. So.
No, and you know what? It's so funny because that's one of those things I think people would have accused De Palma of, like, not having any restraint just because of the sort of the amount of violence in his movies, or like, you know, people think he's a misogynist, or, you know, all these other things. Like, they would think he was too excessive and too much of this and too much of that. But like, you watch it now, you know, removed 30 years, and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is super restrained.
Yeah, you know, that documentary about Brian De Palma kind of talked about that a lot, where it's like the violence in his movies is like, it's not that big of a deal anymore.
No, now the stuff that he was being sort of excoriated for, you can see on like national television, like the big three, you know, like,
yeah.
So
CSI, stuff like that, is doing that on like a weekly basis.
Yeah, man. And like, and to no purpose, like at least this guy was, you know, showing us the sort of more unsavory things that go on in the world, but like with an eye towards telling us something or teaching us something, or, you know, it never felt sort of masturbatory, which is what most sort of knockoff violent things do. And there's something to be said for just getting off on violence, but like, I never felt that way about a De Palma film. I never felt like he was looking down at us, or sort of just enjoying the violence for its own sake.
So what do you think the film has on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh, God.
Now, let me preface this by saying most of the reviews are from within the last 15 years.
Oh, well, then it's got to be in the high 80s, I'm hoping?
89%.
There we go.
With a story inspired by Antonioni's blow-up and a style informed by high-gloss suspense of Hitchcock, De Palma's Blowout is a raw, politically informed, and littered with film references.
There we go.
I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, you know, what are we talking about? Apparently it found its audience.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when we talk about films that kind of got shoved to the wayside, that's the great thing about film, is it exists forever.
Yeah, it's there.
So it will find an audience eventually, hopefully, maybe, unless your film is, I don't know, staying alive.
Right.
It has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, by the way, that's not a bad thing for it, because it's a novelty then. People go and watch it because of the novelty factor.
Yeah. You know, like, that movie found its audience, too. There's no audience for it.
That's the thing, yeah. 0. It found its audience. No.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about film. And like you said, some of us love film. Some of us casually like film. Some of us effectively live film constantly because we're always watching movies.
Yeah.
Which is me, probably you. Anyone who does movie podcasting is always watching something.
Right.
So, you know, and that's kind of the way, it goes when it comes to film. So that's the thing about Blowout, is it ended up finding its audience. It just found it 30 years later.
Right. But at least it found it, you know? And if I'm telling you, man, if one person listens to this podcast and goes, I'll check that out, then we've done our job as humans and cinephiles.
That's true. And that's the way I view this, is just, if I can convince one person to go watch Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yes.
and then they want to die on the inside. Well, I've done my job.
Hey, you did it, man.
You did it, we did it, we all did something together.
Yes, indeed.
But well, let's take a break and we'll play a preview for the next Culture Cast.
1, 2, 3, let's do it!
They've been waiting for a second chance. Waiting for their country to need them again. That time is meow.
What do you guys give me if I kill that bird? Farver, that's a bald eagle. Get a wing, Baldy! Yeah! Guys, what do I win?
A one-way ticket to hell.
It turns out the French-Canadian town Saint-Georges-du-Laurent is actually on American soil. You'll be phasing out a Canadian Mountie unit.
Best behavior, boys.
Not our idea of a good time either, fellas. Personally, I'd rather fuck a moose.
You would need a ladder to do that. Wow.
Let's give a big Canadian welcome to the Vermont Highway Patrol.
Come on, guys. They've come up here to tell us how great it's going to be for all of us to become Americans.
Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Learn the words!
This is happening.
Est-ce que vous savez à quelle vitesse vous allez?
Do neither of you speak English?
I do. We would like to eat your papers.
Can you show me your party papers?
This time everything will be by the book. Everything.
What the fuck are you guys doing? Hey, Tim Horton's ghost.
What can I get for you guys? Whole beer? Liter of cola?
What did you say?
Do you want a liter of cola?
Canada's pretty awesome.
Boop, boop. Don't do that.
Boop, 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 boop.
Should I shoot him?
Who, Father?
Frère Jacques Grey pour Marquis de Saturette. Whoop! Feather Duster, Croissant, Les Miserables, First Catcher, Luke Robitaille, D'Artagnan, Perrier, Friend Tarkin, Ton Peanut, Buster Parfait. Eau de toilette! Eau de doudadin!
That's right. On the next Culture Cast, we're going to be talking about a film that's 17 years in the making. No, it's not nearly as exciting as the wait that's preceded it. We're going to be talking about Super Troopers 2. Oof. A film I honestly can't believe is being made.
I can't
It got made. The film came out in 2001.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Everyone's been waiting.
I mean, okay, you might not like Super Troopers, but I still it's a funny movie. It's stupid as fuck.
Sure.
The jokes are corny as hell, but man, some of it's funny.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Does it deserve a sequel after 20 years? No, I'm not agreeing with you, but I'm not disagreeing with you either. So take that. Everyone check that podcast out. It's going to be great.
The reviews are coming out, and they're saying that it's not terrible.
Okay, well,
which is surprising. That's the most surprising.
You know what? That's a win for them, right?
Yeah. Well, and also they got their movie essentially funded by Patreon, so...
Well, there we go.
That too. They raised like $4 million in like a span of 24 hours.
Well, then clearly there's an audience. I'm not one of them, but like, you know what? Bully. I'm good on you.
Yeah. So until then, where can people find you, Mike?
They can find me on the YouTube at OughtFiveFilms, OughtFiveFilms. You can check out my newest episode of my television show. My show is called You've Never Seen, doing what we were just doing all night, which is trying to shed light on some of the more lesser known or never known films. In this case, it is Catherine Bigelow's 1987 vampire classic Near Dark, which is, in my humble opinion, the greatest vampire film ever made.
I mean, that bar scene.
Yes.
Holy shit. When they come into that bar,
dude,
it's amazing.
I say it in the episode, actually. Like, there's three sort of like bravura set pieces in a row in that movie, any one of which would have elevated it to classic status. Never mind, like, on the heels of one another. And that scene in particular is just, it's it's massive in how great it is.
Well, and you've got the late Bill Pullman. You've got Lance
Bill
Henriksen.
Paxton.
Oh, Bill Pullman, no! Bill Paxton. God damn it.
Yep.
I'm thinking about Independence Day again.
I know. We all are.
Yeah. No. It's got the late Bill Paxton. It's got Lance Henriksen.
Yes.
I mean, what else could you want?
Yeah, and Jeanette Goldstein. So there's like the trio from Aliens in there. They're amazing.
Yeah, I was about to say, they're better in that movie than they are in Aliens.
Oh, 100% they are.
Which goes to show you who in that marriage was the one that was in charge.
Yeah, who was
Catherine Bigelow and James Cameron.
Who was the filmmaker? I think we know who the actual filmmaker was.
It's not the one directing the blue people flying in the sky.
No, was 6 sequels he's doing? No, it was not that. It was the sort of the actual serious filmmaker.
Yeah. Who was the first woman director to ever win an Oscar?
Oh, I forget. I think it was Catherine Bigelow. Curious.
For a movie that's not that good, but that's neither here nor there. So.
Well, I certainly think Near Dark is a better film. I would have preferred her to win Academy Award for that, but the fact that she won any makes me happy because I think she's a great talent.
Yeah, Hurt Locker is not. Don't go watch it. It's boring. It's just kind of a boring movie.
I kind of like it though.
Oof. Well,
I'm sorry. I enjoyed the movie.
You like Hurt Locker? What's going on? Oh God.
I know.
Oh no. Well, you know what? That's the good thing about movies. We all like what we like, and
nobody's wrong in their love of a movie. I mean, if you loved it, great.
Unless you like something that Zack Snyder made, and then
you got a problem. We can no longer be friends.
Then you are wrong.
Right.
And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Culture Stash. You can follow Culture Shocked on Twitter at Culture Shocked. You can follow Mike on Twitter at Father Malone.
Yes. We're not going to make fun of me now, are we? Because it is still Father Mal 1. Yes, Father _ MAL0NE.
I was going to say, replace the O with a 0. That's what I was going to say. We got a little bit of trick, is a little bit of salt. Just a tad bit of salt on that.
All right. Yeah, I'm not super stoked that I have the 0 in there, but, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, no, hey, you know what? If you want it, you got to get it one way or another. I'm not stoked that the website has a K as opposed to a C, but, what the fuck are you going to do? What the fuck are you going to do? You got to...
Yeah, man, you got to roll with it.
You got to make adjustments. You got to make little adjustments.
Ultimately, the creativity shines through no matter what it's called.
That's true. That's why it's Mortal Kombat with a K, not with a C.
Yeah.
Just remember that. And they've rolled with that for 30 years.
They sure did, man.
So... and as always, please head on over to cultureshock.com where you can find out more about today's episode. You'll find links over to iTunes where you can rate and review the show, and to Patreon where you can kick a couple dollars our way. Donors get access to unreleased episodes, DVDs, and a chance to guest co-host a Culture Cast. Right now, we have a Ready Player One addendum up there if you are interested in hearing that with the biggest Ready Player One fan that I know. So go listen to that. Give us $5. You get access to all the unreleased stuff. There's more stuff coming, I promise. I just got to dig through the archives and find it. And as always, big thanks to you, Mike, for sitting down and just going to town on this movie.
Always my pleasure.
Why haven't you done an episode of your YouTube show on this movie?
Oh, you know what? There are some, this is going to sound stupid, there are some movies that I kind of don't want to dig into because I would never stop talking. Fair enough. I would make a 2-hour episode about this movie, and it would just be unwieldy and ridiculous. It would just be like showing the movie and going, isn't this awesome? I mean, that's.
Our good buddy Mike White, the host of The Projection Booth, and I'm his co-host on the Kolchak Tapes, did a 7-hour podcast on Conan the Barbarian. So
wow,
I think you could do a 2-hour blowout video on YouTube. Come on.
I don't know. I could someday. It'll be my life's work.
And make sure to check out the next Culture Cast.
Two-step, posted with the crew. You know how we do, I'm just two-step, drink in my right hand, phone in my other hand, getting to the money. Oh man, two-step, posted with the crew. Yeah, you know how we do.
Hey, two-stepping, know what I'm saying? 1, 2, 1, 2. Benjamin, aka the Black T, you know what I'm saying? Catch me with my crew every day. Two-step.